You know, every Boxing Day, this very British tradition unfolds across the countryside. But these days, these hunts are right at the center of a really fierce political and cultural battle. So we're going to dive into this highly charged debate around a practice called trail hunting and figure out what's really at stake for both sides. Let's just start with the human side of this. For people like Amy, a trail hunter, a potential ban isn't some abstract political issue. Not at all. It's about her livelihood, her whole identity, and honestly, a real fear for what the future holds. And this is really where the conflict kicks off. We're not just talking about a sport here. For people like Amy, this is about a rural tradition that goes back generations. So a potential government ban feels like a direct threat to their entire way of life. To really get a sense of the impact, just think about this. For Amy's business alone, a ban means 6 people are out of a job. It means an uncertain future for 26 horses. This isn't just a weekend hobby. It's a family business that's been passed down through generations. And Amy's grandfather, Glenn, kind of zooms out a bit. He calls hunting the lifeblood of the countryside. For him, and for a lot of people who share his view, a ban would be absolutely savage, a huge blow to the very fabric of their community. Okay, so now that we've got a feel for the emotional stakes, let's get into the specifics. What exactly is trail hunting? And how did it end up right in the middle of all this controversy? It's actually pretty simple. Instead of chasing a live animal, the hounds are trained to follow a scent that's been laid out beforehand. This whole practice was basically created as a legal way to keep the tradition going after the big ban on fox hunting. Right, so back in 2004, the Hunting Act came in, and it was a huge deal. It completely changed the game. So in response, the hunting community had to adapt, and trail hunting was born from that. It was a way to keep their hounds, their horses, and their traditions going while staying on the right side of the law. So what's the actual case for letting trail hunting continue? Let's break down the arguments from the people who support it. At its heart, this whole thing boils down to 2 completely different ways of looking at the same activity. One side sees a legal, traditional sport that's part of their culture. The other side, they see a deceptive cover for illegal animal cruelty. And, well, that's why this is so explosive. Now, Mo Fisher from the Countryside Alliance makes a really key point for the pro-hunting side. They say, look, opponents are getting 2 different things mixed up. For them, this debate is strictly about the legal sport of trail hunting, the very thing that was created as a compromise after that 2004 ban. The pro-hunting side also brings a bit of politics into it. They point to a recent poll showing that 2/3 of rural voters already feel like the government doesn't care about them. So they argue pushing for a ban would just make that divide even worse and prove that politicians are totally out of touch with life in the countryside. Okay, so let's quickly recap their argument. It's about protecting jobs and a whole way of life. They also say, hey, voters have bigger fish to fry, that Parliament has already spent over 700 hours debating this, and that the law we have now is perfectly capable of dealing with anyone who breaks it. All right, let's flip the coin. Now we're going to look at the other side of this debate. What are the main reasons people are calling for a complete ban on trail hunting? Jennifer White from PETA doesn't mince her words. She makes the central accusation head-on. She argues trail hunting isn't a real sport at all, but just a smokescreen, a cover that lets what she calls exceptionally cruel, illegal fox hunting happen right under everyone's noses. And those who oppose trail hunting also point to public opinion. They'll cite polls that show a whopping 85% of the British public, and that includes people in rural areas, actually support a full ban on all types of hunting with hounds. To back up that smokescreen claim, activists point to evidence like this. Over 250 credible reports of illegal hunting filed in just the last few months of the year. For them, this is proof positive that the current law just isn't being followed and needs to be made much, much stronger. So, to sum up the case for a ban, activists bring up things like leaked footage, they raise very serious concerns about animal welfare, and they claim illegal hunting is actually increasing. At the end of the day, they argue the 2004 Act just isn't tough enough to stop these things from happening. So, after hearing from both camps, it's pretty obvious that this is a deeply divided and, frankly, unresolved debate. You have 2 groups looking at the exact same practice and seeing 2 completely different things. I mean, look at it. On one hand, trail hunting is framed as a legal compromise that's essential for rural culture and jobs. But on the other, it's seen as nothing more than a deceptive smokescreen for illegal animal cruelty. It's really hard to see how you could ever find a middle ground between those 2 views. This whole debate really forces us to ask a much bigger question, doesn't it? It's not just about hounds and scents. It's about how we, as a society, balance our cultural heritage with our changing ideas about animal welfare. And when those two things come into direct conflict, which one wins? That is the fundamental question right at the heart of this entire thing.